to the Vegan Stew. Welcome to our second show of 2023. And thank you to Total Body Lab for sponsoring our live shows this month. If you haven't heard, Dr. Campbell, Dr. T. Colin Campbell, will be live with me on January 29th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. It's posted all over Facebook, posted all over our websites. Join it because it's going to be an incredible talk with Dr. Campbell. Follow up to the previous one we had, which is he has stuff to say and he just really wants everyone to hear it. And I'm super flattered that it's our platform that he's going to do it. So, hey, don't forget to tune in. Let's see. So thank you to Plant-Based Network. Oh my gosh, no. Thank you to Total Body Lab. And if you'd like to win prizes, go to our website, virtualvegfestlive.com, and hit the contest tab, or any of our websites for that matter. And you can win a prize back from TerraSeed, Hodo Foods, VegKey, Total Body Lab, BV Kids, Cinnaholic, Familish, Bernie Wilds, Kathy Hester, and Trupo Treats. And thanks to Evan Costner, because he has been posting and helping us with our social media. And I hope you can see that things are getting even better than they were. So once again, go to YouTube, subscribe to Virtual Veg Fest and the Vegan Stew, help us grow, and hit the notification button so you know when we go live. And of course, if you have any questions or comments during today's show, put them in a little box and we'll address them. We love having you part of it. Today is going to be a fun one because we're going to talk about cooking, and everyone on the panel likes to cook. So here we go. We've got Marla Rose from Vegan Street.
Hey.
We got Sovereign from Morel and Morning. And we've got the Veg Coach, Jaffe Jones. This is our panel tonight. So here we go. Let's see. We're going to start by, oh, there's a stink bug. The stink bug is literally on top of my monitor.
Oh, God.
Looking out over it. So, hey, there's a stink bug in here.
Is he showing up as someone watching?
It's pretty. I actually probably should take a picture.
It's a troll.
It's absolutely adorable for a stink bug. All right, sorry, I couldn't miss that moment. No, that's really cool. So it was looking.
Animals come first.
They do, and if I was not on here, I would take the stink bug and put the stink bug outside.
Right.
However,
we'll take whatever watchers we can get, right?
That's true. This one will be a silent one. So we're gonna start out talking about eggs.
Yeah.
Not vegan ones. Marla, what are we gonna talk about? Tell
Well,
me about eggs.
I just thought it was first of all, I didn't even think about this when I suggested we talk about eggs, but I do have an article in this just new issue of Veg News about the egg industry. So if you subscribe or see it at the grocery store or Barnes and Noble, pick it up because it's I think a very good article. But the point that I wanted to make is just like people have been talking about this for weeks now. Of how expensive eggs are. And there are people who mistakenly try to link it to inflation, and it has nothing to do really with inflation. It has to do with the fact that there was a big avian flu outbreak about a year ago in which 50 million birds in the egg industry were killed. But also, you know, a smaller degree because of COVID and, you know, issues with supply. But I was doing a little research into the cost of eggs over the years. And would you know that since the Consumer Price Index has been tracking the prices of all these various things in the United States, eggs in 1937, during the height of the waning years, but still the height of depression, were 36 cents. In today's dollars, that's $6.40. And the price of eggs has gone up and down over the past 80 or so years, but has generally skewed way, way, way lower. And it wasn't high then because of the Great depression. That's just like the natural cost of breeding. But like there's so many factors that go into making eggs artificially cheap. But I just think it's an important thing that people realize is the costs that are offloaded onto the animals, onto the people who live near these very polluting industries, the cost to medical care and that sort of thing. So anyway, there's just a lot of options for replacing eggs, and now is a good time to look into that.
So how much are a dozen eggs at your typical grocery store? Do we know?
I think there's quite a variance, but they're a lot more than they were, a couple of years ago. Like I think certain states it's higher, but I think it's like $6 to $8 or something like that. Some places lower, some places higher, depending on where you're looking. So, and how much is a thing of just eggs, which is a dozen eggs? It's like I don't know,
$4
$4 or $5, and
or
then
less.
there's
Yeah.
silken tofu that you can do stuff with when you're baking. You can add flax and water. You can add all kinds of things. So vegans have been, what's that?
That's the show.
Yeah, vegans have been replacing these items for years, not because of economic reasons necessarily, but we've figured out all these workarounds to these things that we thought, like there were no just eggs in the 1990s. There she goes. Eat vegan on $4 a day. It can be and should be affordable. So
Even today.
yeah.
No, that's great. It's a great segue to, what our show is about tonight, which is about cooking alternatives. That what do we use when we're cooking for something like eggs or dairy or cheese or pretty much anything out there? Like what do we do? What are your favorite things that you use? How do we use them? I mean, so we can start with eggs because
before we move away from the whole eggs as a concept, let's just recall that they are the menstrual extractions of a chicken, for starters, in case anybody had any questions about that. And the whole thing of I get this all the time, shouldn't if I have them in my backyard, if they're humanely raised, the classic picture they have at Whole Foods, when they got exposed by who was it that did that expose about showing that basically the humanely raised were at the same end of the counter, the long counter, the factory farm, where they had a little bit of sunlight, but that was really it. It just did one end. So, I mean,
it's very true. It's written into some of I think that the industries depend on our naivete and desire for fairy tales to be real, but this idea that free range, as I talked to a veterinarian for the article I was researching, she said in a lot of cases, because these are like these big football fields full of chickens, these is not the little picture book from your childhood of them poking around in the grass. But a lot of times it's more stressful even because there's no place to go if you're a bird who's being aggressed against. It's like you're so compacted and and a lot of times the idea of cage free or whatever, a lot of times it just means one door is open somewhere in this vast space. Whether or not the birds can actually get there is something different, so a lot of it's just about very wishful thinking.
Right.
It's really important for people to understand that free range and cage free is also except that there's like 100,000 chickens in a space that you wouldn't walk into because the smell is so overwhelming because no one goes into clean. And they do at that little door that they let a few chickens out.
Right.
And that's how they can call them free range.
Right.
And most of those chickens never ever get out. Right. So
and they often clip their beaks so they can't peck each other because otherwise they peck each other to death, which they do.
The stress and the aggression, and then they've got so many issues with their respiration because they have been, had their beaks, the ends of them amputated and filling with ammonia all day. They've
Right.
had no painkillers, no treatment, no anything. So, it's just it is an unnecessary product.
Right.
It causes so much harm, so it's so easy to replace. So like maybe we could think about like one item at a time, like maybe we could, because like with baking, when you're replacing eggs, it depends on whether you're using eggs as
Right.
these different capacities of what they would.
Right. You can't use applesauce to coat eggplant to make eggplant parm. So,
Let's
I
hope
mean,
not.
there's
Yeah.
this one piece I want to, I don't,
Yeah.
it'd be remiss of us to not mention. It's that the egg industry, like the dairy industry, is a very female industry.
Mhm.
So, what do they do with the boys?
Right.
And if you don't know, and for people who don't know, when there are male chicks,
Mhm.
when I was an educator, I'd say, how would you like to die? Do you want to die by suffocation, or do you want to die by being ground up alive?
Right.
Those are your choices. That's the choice for the male chicks. I'm sorry to be a downer that we're starting.
No, but I mean, it's
No, it's
reality.
the truth.
Yeah.
But it's right. But that's
Yeah.
what happens to the male chicks, and
Right.
it happens immediately.
No,
And you
right.
can't release them because they'll die if you release them. So
No,
there's no winning there.
Right. No birds are covered even by the very, false advertising of the Humane Slaughter Act anyway. So even their full-grown mothers who die at like 18 months to 2 years old or whatever, they're not, there's no requirement. That I think we have all these notions that there's like some guy standing at the end of a slaughter line who's like peacefully like giving them an injection. I know it's just terrible to think about, but but
No,
no, none of that happens, and it's a it's up to the consumers to say no, I don't want any part in this, and that's the whole linchpin to everything.
Right. You don't want to spend $8 for a dozen eggs. Well, you don't have to.
Right.
And I guess that's a perfect. You're right, Marla. It's a perfect place to start in the sense of. So I brought up eggplant parm. What would you use to coat the eggplant? Just egg. Follow your heart. Egg. Both liquids.
Mhm.
That's what you need. You need
Yeah.
a liquid. You can mix it with a plant-based milk
Mhm.
to put in there to make the egg wash or whatever you're going to do
Yeah.
with the flour. You can double. You can do wash, flour,
Mhm.
wash, flour
Mm.
again if you choose. You can do that.
Yeah.
For like a fried food, those are really good. Those are really
Aquafaba.
good. Let's like say Dana will bring her back. I always use tofu for egg replacement when eggs are
Mhm.
the main ingredient. I make an awesome quiche with tofu.
Mhm.
Well, if you haven't tried making quiche with just egg, I highly recommend you do. It is. I used to make quiche with tofu. I made it with just egg. It is incredible.
Yum. But
Yeah,
what's
absolutely
even
incredible.
better sometimes?
What?
Adding a little, so you have the just egg and you blend it with some silken tofu and the black salt, and then it's really eggy. Super eggy.
Oh.
Super.
Then you put that into a quiche.
Yeah, then it's like it's got like the body of what you're expecting, but the other, there was something I was going to
Use
say.
the hard, the hard silken tofu or just the soft?
At
Or
that
medium?
point, it doesn't really matter because I think the just kind of adds the body it needs. But like any kind of silken tofu, that's a good question. But I think silken tofu is ideal for getting that correct texture. And the other thing I was going to mention is like if you don't want to use a store-bought product and you just want to keep it really simple, which is what we did in the 90s up until Just Egg was introduced, so when people discovered, as Susan mentioned, aquafaba kind of replaces egg whites. It's not like necessarily like the whole egg, but if you take ground flax, and you add, 1 tablespoon of ground flax and 2.5 tablespoons of aquafaba, or 3 tablespoons of aquafaba. Then it is so eggy in, not taste wise, but in terms of like the texture principles, in baked goods. It's perfect. So.
Right. You can also use the ground flax with water. You don't have to use it with aquafaba to make a substitute egg in baking, which
That was
sometimes
what I
makes
did till I leveled up.
so I don't ever save the aquafaba from a can of chickpeas, and I also make my own chickpeas in the Instant Pot, so I don't have any aquafaba. So and I make chickpeas weekly. So it's when I get really low or I can't get what I need that I'll buy a can of chickpeas. And then I think about it and I just pour it out.
Yeah.
Don't hate me.
I get really anxious when I get low on chickpeas. Like, chickpeas are so important to my diet.
Oh, they're so good when you make them. Like, you take an organic raw chickpea and you make them in the Instant Pot. There's no chickpeas that taste.
Yum.
But we're gonna be able to do this by 8 o'clock. We can probably talk food for days.
Right. But so, like, there's all kinds of things that people use as egg replacers in baking. So it could be like it again.
Seltzer.
So there's like bananas. There's seltzer. Is that what you said? Yeah, but seltzer. They've done great experiments where they found that that's like the perfect egg replacer. Aquafaba or water and flax, all these things. So
applesauce, yogurt. I mean, there's just look, Susan saying aquafaba can be frozen.
Yes, that's true.
Susan, you've been
How long will it keep in the fridge? How long will it keep in the fridge?
I've probably tested that and still didn't use it, so I don't know.
But yeah, for to use in a main thing like a scramble or frittata or quiche or whatever, then you're not using flax and water. Hey, my son! That's my son!
Love it, magic. I mean, it is magic because you have to stop and think and go, who thought to do that? Who said, hey, let me drain my beans, because it's not just chickpeas. You can do it with other beans too. Right. Let me put this into a mixer, a high-speed mixer, and mix it.
These two French fries.
Yeah, I mean,
and Goose, the guy Goose. But that's the thing, is that's what I keep trying to convince vegans of, is we are so resourceful because we've had to like find these workarounds over the years, and like sometimes you're craving something that you grew up with, or you're remembering something that you want to try. So, Dana, you just anyway,
days in the fridge.
It forces you to be resourceful and creative and experimental, so.
It's so sweet. I love when the chat, they just all start chatting with each other. That's really fun. So yeah, those are amazing egg replacers.
Yeah.
And just check your recipes. Typically with vegan cookbooks and vegan recipes, if it's a good cookbook author, they'll say you can use this instead of, so that and then just, a quick Google search or Facebook will help you decide how or what to use when you need an egg for a recipe. Like I use flax most of the time for like a replacement egg in baking, but it can give a gumminess that you may or may not like as a finished product. So it's just really up to you taste wise. Vegan bakers are probably some of the best to reach out to.
What they have done in the Aquafaba group, these are artisans who are like creating these gorgeous, that's like the European vegans who are discovered aquafaba and are like making these extravagant desserts that you would never have imagined before. Susan, you're right. That baking powder and baking soda, correct. The other thing I was going to mention for anyone who's not familiar with Just Egg is you just use it 1 for 1. So if you're converting a recipe and it calls for 3 eggs, you use that equivalent amount. So I think it's like 3 tablespoons of Just equals 1 egg, something like that. So you just use the same thing.
Yeah, or you just pour it into the pan and cook. You can do-
I just use aquafaba for baking.
And you bake
Um,
a lot, Sovereign. You are like an incredibly talented.
Sovereign makes beautiful stuff.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
before I discovered aquafaba, like to make frittatas and quiches, I used chickpeas, and a little bit of baking powder, surprisingly. And it gave it a little bit of a lift, not a high lift, but it did give it a little bit of a lift. Aquafaba is magic. I've used chickpeas and black beans. Shh, Anna. Um, I've used and then Just Egg is fantastic for especially having little ones who demand pancakes a lot. It's great to use that in replacement for it, or just really literally anything that you want to use, like for baking, for cooking, fried rice. If you're doing like an an
Oh
egg
yeah.
fried rice or doing anything, it's amazing. But aquafaba has been, even for when I do buttercreams, it's been fantastic for meringues. It's been fantastic for just everything. And I did make meringues. I made the orange and black ones that I made. That was just aquafaba with chickpeas. I
What
did
was
a
it?
vanilla and
A
vanilla
meringue.
and pumpkin meringues. Those little droplets. It's on my Instagram. That was just aquafaba.
Can you put your Instagram handle in the chat?
Yeah.
Because I think people need to see what you're up to, because it's really
I got Ruby barking. We got kids talking. It's like real life.
yeah.
A live show. Yeah, that's awesome.
I used to make pancakes with applesauce.
Yeah.
Well,
That was the way back in the day, right? And it's fine, right? Like, it's not like you were like, I can really take the applesauce here.
But even if you did, it's still good. You know, it's not a bad. I mean, you make
No.
apple pancakes, like Apple
like
Jacks,
blueberry pancakes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and now, I mean, It's Really Vegan has created a pancake mix, so you just add water, and it's incredible.
What's it called? It's Really Vegan.
It's really vegan. So it's reallyvegan.com, or virtualvegfestlive.com has them for sale.
Oh.
And yeah, it's just amazing. Like, it is the best pancake mix. And oddly enough, I actually like his gluten-free version of it better than his glutinous version.
That's saying something.
Yes, it is so good. So that's what I have downstairs. If I'm going to make pancakes, I just pour it into a bowl, add water, and make my pancakes.
People need simple. That's what I'm always
It's
saying.
very-
Don't give people a laundry list of stuff.
It's so simple to do that. They really just need to package it. That's all that I do. Flour, salt, sugar, baking powder, olive oil, water. That's it. Just like you said. And that's it.
Yeah.
Or you can use a milk, but that's it. And it will fluff just like as if you were using eggs. So you don't necessarily use it. And I have a bag made. I just pre-make, because I've never seen kids blow through pancakes so fast in my life. I just don't make it. It's good to go.
It's such a good meal. So if we skip along, because obviously we could spend an hour talking about egg replacements, but cheese is probably a really big deal for people, and obviously the hardest thing that people have to give up when it comes to crossing over to like a vegetarian vegan world, more so vegan world. And I want to skip we all know there's packages on the shelves in the supermarket that you can buy. I don't want to talk about those because that's easy. You just go to the store, pick them up. What do we use instead of that? Right? Okay. So I mean, I'll throw it out there. Nutritional yeast, also known as nooch in our world. If you haven't heard that, you've heard it now. So if you see nooch, you'll know it's nutritional yeast. I buy 5 pounds of it at a time, which, if you know, nutritional yeast is very light. So I have it all over.
She's got a medium habit, people. She's not.
I'm part of a buyer's club. I get it really nice discount on stuff. So
can I say something?
And you can use flours like that for many purposes. You like to use matzo meal for patties and dumplings. Oh, that's a great suggestion. Yeah. Well,
that's true.
Don't correct him.
But okay, so what I wanted to say is I make what I think is one of the best if I may be so humble, mac and cheeses around. And it really is made with, and I hope my son will jump in and say, yes, mom, it is the best. But it's with steamed or boiled potatoes and carrots and onions and garlic and these things together until they're nice and tender. Then I'm pointing like you guys know what I'm talking. You put it in a blender with nutritional yeast and maybe some tapioca for a little thickness. Oh God, a scoop or two of miso to add the cheesiness, some salt and other seasonings. My husband brought a big tray of my mac and cheese, and he thinks I should call it something different because it just doesn't convey. It's just like so much more sophisticated and rich, even though it's just made with simple peasant foods. These are like potatoes, carrots, onions. But he brought a big tray of it to a group of his friends were having a party. These guys, none of them are vegan, and they were just losing their minds over it. If you want to get a little fancy at the end, you can add panko, breadcrumbs, whatever over the top. You can saute some, mushrooms and put it in there or whatever. But the point is, this is made out of the simplest of ingredients, really. The weirdest thing is the nutritional yeast and lemon juice to add the tang, like, because you're just for the main, you're kind of trying to replicate flavors and to a lesser degree sometimes textures. But cashews are important. One thing that I learned Yoko is that cashews have a higher starch level in them. Like all have different degrees of starchiness, and the reason why cashews lend themselves so well to cheeses is because of the higher starch.
Yeah. Cashews a go-to. Cashews and nutritional yeast, and just like you use like carrots and potatoes. Of course, if you know me, I have a thing for color, so I love using beets. I've done with red beets or bold blood beets, and I've done with golden beets, and roasting those, like the salty, like the umami. Since I'm going to be fancy here with terms, I love using black garlic. And I've done a black garlic cashew cheese using tapioca starch or agar agar sometimes, just a little bit. That firms up when you're doing your own cheeses. Yes, yes.
Add that
And if you're doing your own cheeses too, it's actually not that difficult to do. And for people who may have sensitivity to nuts, I've done with sunflower seeds. I've done with pepitas. And you just do it the same way. I found that pepitas, you need to soak them just a little bit longer. If need to, you can boil them or you add hot water first. Actually, not boil them, but add hot water over it first and let that soften. And then you can do that instead of letting it sit overnight to
Is
to
that
soften.
a regular blender and a high-powered blender, or
when I first started making cheeses, I was using a just standard, I think it was like $50 or $30. It was a Black & Decker blender. And then I was able to upgrade to Vitamix. But you can start seriously with just a regular blender. The thing about it is depending on how fine that you want it, and if you're wanting that kind of either gritty or you want it extremely smooth, you can do, if you don't have a high-speed blender, another thing that's great to have is a food processor. That thing works wonders too if you're really trying to get it more smoother and finer. But
I wonder also like a cheesecloth, would that be helpful?
Yes. Cheesecloth, especially if you are doing when you're soaking your nuts first, and then cheesecloth you don't necessarily need for. Okay, so there are two ways that you can go. If you're like making your own milk, then you're gonna need the cheesecloth. Because you would, of course, and I should be quite clear because that's exactly what I did. I would take the pulp from the nuts and just dehydrate those and use that for flour. for almond flour or cashew flour for something else. But when you have control of, like, when you're making your own milk, then you get to add in the thickness. You get to control the thickness. Sometimes you really do not even need to. All you need to do is just literally like soak the nuts, get rid of the water, rinse it, and then just put it in a blender and add as much nutritional use as you want to, because the stuff is amazing on anything. And it's if you are leery, like, I think the other thing too is really different when you have nowadays, because there are a lot of YouTube videos and TikTok and social media to show that there are simple ways to do it. Because I first started off saying this was just way too difficult, or is this going to be too taxing, and it's really not, and it's easier. And there's nothing wrong with going to buy in the store, in terms of the specific brands that you may like when it comes to the vegan ones, but it's more cost efficient, because if you're going to spend like $8 on a slice of 10, you can have a big tub or your own little round cake tin and make your own and have it
and you can
for several
control
days.
you can control the ingredients. If like a lot of times commercial stuff, I hate to sound like I'm like an old lady or whatever, it's like a lot of times it's just too salty. Like, it's just like so much salt, and I'm not even talking about like sodium in terms of nutrition. It's just like the first thing you taste is salt. It's not good. So that's another plus to making it at home. Is like, you can control the ingredients, and then also when you've been making certain recipes enough, it just becomes so intuitive. You're like an octopus in the just grabbing things. And what Dana mentioned, Trader Joe's vegan feta, and Trader Joe's is now getting much more into vegan cheeses than they ever were. That's my son's favorite, and he breads it and puts it in the air fryer. It's just really phenomenal.
One of the things I like to do is process. I have this food grinder, and it has a very fine shredding blade, and cauliflower. I'll put that in a salad, and it looks just like Parmesan. When I was at Chicago Veggie Fest, not to be confused with Vegan Mania, was doing her first demo out of Artisan Vegan Cheese, the book that she first wrote before her whole food line came out. So because she was with my publisher, I got to help her make some of the cheeses, and we were spending like all night blanching almonds, rubbing the skin off, then just throwing them in the Vitamix. And that's really all she did. I mean, there was no cheesecloth involved. It was just getting the skin off and blending them.
And if you don't want to do that, you can get the quartered or slivered almonds.
Although they oxidize more because they've had the skin off.
That's true.
So it tastes. I think it tastes better if you do
I'm sure you're right. Yeah.
Go to that trouble or not.
Yeah, cashews are another thing I buy in bulk and have in the house and use, because I make my own cashew milk every week. I have to make more tomorrow because I finished up my cashew milk today. But Stephen will be like, I really could use a cream sauce for whatever he's making. It happened to be the carbonara that he made in December. And I was like, I can make that. So I just took cashews and water and started that in the Vitamix, and then said, what spices do you want? Like, where do you want to go flavor-wise with this?
Right.
And put in what he wanted, and made a really delicious cream sauce that
really
I don't measure, so that's a bit of a problem. I'm one of those people. So
Can
it
I
made
give a little shout out? I want to just mention, because she's an old school vegan who was experimenting with making vegan cheeses back in the 90s. So Joe Stepaniak's Uncheese Cookbook. That was one of my first cookbooks that I ever got as a new vegan. And so she was making a lot of stuff with not only agar, but also cashews and miso, and creating these flavor profiles that are basically cheese, So it's not to say she was the originator, but to say we all build on each other, and her that cookbook is really fun. But I think that was the basis of the mac and cheese that I make today. I've just made it so many times I can't remember, But yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah, Tofu Cookery is a great cookbook. There's some from there. Yeah. I can't remember the last time I actually cooked from a cookbook, but that was in frequent rotation back in my early
Right,
days.
right,
You know, it's a great
right.
one.
The Uncheese cookbook, that was Joe's.
Joseph Kenya? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
just that, just to plug Book Publishing Company. We should plug Book Publishing Company
Publishing
was
Company.
one. That's Ellen's publisher, also Joe's publisher. So if you're interested in any of the books by either of them, you can go to Book Publishing Company and check them out, or Amazon.
And after
Wait,
Joe, I think, cranked out her last cookbook, but then it wasn't her last cookbook. She
She
began-
kept threatening it was going to be her last.
she, became what I guess is known as a recipe developer and wrote recipes for some of the other authors who did not maybe have the inclination or talent that
Right.
she did to do the
She's
recipe.
basically a goddess.
Pretty amazing, yeah.
But
It
like,
was super-
what's that?
Sovereign, go ahead. We can't see you, so
I'm
we
sorry.
don't know.
I just kind of wanted to touch back to sauce. You're talking about sauces. Coconut milk and coconut cream, full fats, are amazing. I've used them for stroganoff bases, used them for carbonara bases. I've used them in some of the Nigerian dishes, Igbo that I make. Of course, using them for ice creams. Like when certain people are looking for things for sauce purposes because you're trying to find that thickness for fettuccine sauces. Those are, just having something that will thicken cashews with the starch to help as an agent, and coconut milk, either canned. You can even use I think it was in a pinch. I was looking to get canned full fat coconut milk, and I was like, I'm not paying $5 for this. So I was like, what is an alternative? And Planet Oat, extra creamy coconut milk came in like that. Yep. And it really helped. It was just as great, and you still have plenty left over, and there's so many more choices than when I became vegan in the 90s.
And I think we just know so much more, right? Like we know.
Well, there's also more information highway, so
Right.
we have more information in front of us too that we can consume, or get pissed off or have people be mean and stuff like that. I mean, stemming off of that, tofu is also another great way to create a sauce. Silken tofu, or I do organic soy because that's important to me, and it probably should be important to you. I do organic soy, so I always have organic silken tofu in the house in the little packages that don't have to be refrigerated, and I can throw that as a base of a sauce, or like to put as a dressing on pasta or however you want to do it. But I can also take it and throw it in with some melted chocolate chips and some plant milk and some vanilla, and I can make mousse.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Really, really easily, and just put that baby into a bowl and have it set in the fridge, and you have the.
You want to put it in a pie crust too, then you can be extra fancy.
Yes.
That is an old school recipe there. What's that?
Oops.
Okay.
I get so dyslexic when I do this here.
There's the mousse. It's really hard to do.
Yeah, that's not
So people are getting a little sick, but okay.
But it's in there.
All right, so we actually have a question.
Back in
Is
the
there any
day.
concern over the ethical issues with how coconuts are harvested?
In terms of monkeys or other animals being exploited, I think primarily monkeys, but there are companies that have an ethical statement that I think it was called Harmless Harvest or something like that. They only will use ethically sourced. I mean, we should be trying to do that with all of our ingredients, right?
I look for ethically sourced only as much as possible.
Yeah.
Palm oil is a major thing that's used in a lot of ethnic foods, especially in Nigerian cooking. I try and look for ethical, and if I can't find it, I substitute it with a different,
It's easy enough, right?
Yeah, and chocolate too. Chocolate you want ethical as well. Palm
Palm is it's challenging because palm oil, the way it's used for traditional dishes, there's a specific flavor.
Yeah.
Like it does something. So, I mean, I don't mind. I tried to stay as close to traditional, but I will scour and go hunting several places and research a company to make sure that it's ethical. Because if I'm doing any recipe development or anything like that, I'm not going to quote unquote say, for it to be trendy. I will search. I am the person that stares at labels for hours on end in a store, or will look to make sure that it's an ethical company, that it's not harming any animals or the environment, or if it's being used where you are using people from different countries, make sure that the money is going to them and you're not just using them for exploitation. I'd rather it be tedious to find those than to just grab something and then claim that it's ethical, because you're doing a disservice.
And I think that kind of comes back to the whole, like, should eggs be as cheap as they are? Should we be able to buy these things that are quite taxing to, like for me, living in the climate I do, I'm not going to naturally just see coconuts, or coconut, it has to be shipped, coconut milk has to be shipped here. But so, like, trying to pay a fair price with ethically aligned companies is part of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And do we need to say why cheese is so addictive? Because it has casomorphin, as in morphine.
Literally addictive, right?
I mean, it's made for baby cows to keep coming back constantly to mama to nurse and grow very large very quickly. And it has a similar effect in humans, which is why it is so hard to give up.
And it's so hard to replicate, right? Because we don't have the same kinds of addictive qualities in kale and cucumbers and, but so, like, I will say that when I went vegan in 95, there were no reasonable, like, there was, I don't want to diss any companies that were trying, but they were terrible, terrible, terrible things that still scar my taste buds. There were like 2 brands and awful, awful, awful. But so you just had to quit. If you knew what you knew and you wanted to go vegan for the right reasons, you just had to quit. And so when reasonable vegan cheeses came out on the market, like 10, 15 years later, I still prefer like a pizza without cheese, because I just got used to that was
right.
It's
so funny you mention that, because Amy's used to have a cheeseless pizza, and I went looking for it this week in the grocery store and couldn't find it. I don't know.
Caramelized onions underneath. Yeah.
Exactly. You can't find it. You can't find it at all. That's how I kind of get the kids into pizza. But I noticed that if you do have a hard time finding a cheese, or like I don't have time to make it, pesto. Pesto works. Pesto is perfect. It works wonders.
Right. And like what Ellen was saying, like if you make a big batch of caramelized onions, and then that's like you're like, oh my God, it's so rich and tender. It's like what people eat. What's that duck liver pate? Everyone goes crazy about foie gras. Yeah, it's like, but like if you just look at it, I've never had that, of course, but like if you look at it from the perspective of like, this is so rich and delicious and sweet, and you make onions into something that tastes like candy.
You're putting it on bread. You're just putting it on a form of bread that's like pizza.
Like ham,
you can't go wrong with caramelized onions on any type of form of bread.
Exactly, and I think that's kind of what, to Sovereign's point, like if you just kind of, I think one of the things that vegans learn, especially those of us who went vegan a while ago, is you just learn to be adaptive. Like, so if there's not this kind of cheese and there's not this kind of whatever, what can I do to make this happen? And
mushrooms really saute well too, and all the different kinds of mushrooms, just really a rich sauce.
Not in my house, but I get that it's in other people's houses. No mushrooms allowed in this house. The smell of them sauteing actually makes me sick. So yeah, it's really
I'm sorry.
Stephen likes mushrooms, so when we go out,
Oh,
I'll be
I
like, "Oh, look, you can eat the mushrooms." Because
better load up, buddy.
here's your chance.
I love
They're high in vitamin D too.
Oh yeah, Molly.
They're really healthy for
Molly
you.
knows. Molly
They're like
knows.
stupid healthy for you. I get that. I just
I used to work at a pizza place. I was the only vegan working at Little Caesars, and
Oh, Little Caesars! Oh my
everybody,
god!
yeah, everybody was like, when I would like make like a snack for myself, and there would be, because I would go and have to dough myself because like I don't know what you guys did. Way I'm in my little corner, just on my break, filling around with my own dough and just using sauce and just putting vegetables on things. And then I would take, like, there was a Trader Joe's like right around the corner, and then there was a Whole Foods like right in front of us. So I would run over there before I would go to work, and I'm just using olive oil and all these other things. And I introduced a lot of people there to a vegan form of like pizza. They were like, really? Like, I mean, it's the shock. And I think they're looking for that fatty aspect. You're looking for the saltiness, the fattiness. That's what you're looking for, you know. And there are other ways to kind of replicate it, but, you know, yet again, a lot has changed. There are way more options. I'm happy for, you know, Generation Z and Generation Alphas here, because they get to know that there's so many options. You can make a cheese with avocados as well, and nutritionally. I mean, there's just so much that you can do. Use pine nuts to give that same type of, you know, taste. Especially if you roast them first on the stove, like kind of just do a little bit of heat. It's amazing. Yes. Olives, cauliflower. Yes. Olives and artichokes. Yes. Are everything.
But then, like, so you mentioned sunflower seeds earlier. I make
Yeah.
like a vegan tuna out of sunflower seeds.
Mm.
That is, it is incredible, absolutely incredible. No oil in it. Pickle
Nice.
juice is a big thing to help with flavor, and you know, oh, it's and
Pickle
pickles.
juice, yes, for
Pickle
sure.
juice and pickles in there. I think one of the most important things, because we could. I'm hungry, and I'm like, this is not helping. And dinner is cooking like downstairs, and it's going to start to smell up here really good. And I think one of the most important things for people is just remember that I know there are people in the kitchen that have to be exact and measure and follow recipes to a T. Recipes are a guide. Don't be afraid to go outside the lines and know what your palate is, know what your flavor profiles are that you enjoy, what profiles you want to replicate from foods that you had pre-vegan or as vegetarian or whatever that is. Just know that, as Andy from Compassion Company's shirt says, anything you can eat, I can eat vegan. So if you have any questions or comments, or you can reach out to any of us. Our social media is your friend.
Talking about food.
We love talking about food, and we all love to cook. So
can I say something?
Yeah.
I think part of this whole thing too is a willingness to be flexible and understand that something's not going, just because something doesn't taste exactly like what you remember, it doesn't mean it's lesser than, it doesn't mean it's worse. It just means it's a little different because it is made of different ingredients, and that's okay, you know? So I think part of the process of all of this, one of the things that I've learned over the years is, like, a lot of people come to me and they say, I thought I loved food before I went vegan, but now that I'm vegan, that everything tastes so amazing. And part of that is that you don't have dairy killing your, you know, coating your palate, you know, but also you just become so much more adventurous and wake up so much more to the different possibilities. But I think that that's got to be part of what makes a successful long-term vegan, is a willingness to adapt and adopt and have a fairly flexible attitude. Doesn't mean that you have to be thrilled with everything that you make, but a willingness to get back on the bike and try it again, you know? And yeah, I mean, that's essential.
Well, to explore. And then Susan said something too. She said cooking is an art, baking is a science, and I add to that food is a canvas. So paint.
Oh yeah.
That's what it is for. Paint in what multiple and various colors that are available with fruits and vegetables and what nature has provided. You know, they say that there is a rainbow, and yes, the rainbow, which mostly consists of the reds, the yellows, and the greens, but there are the purples, the blacks, the reds. The first time I entered DeKalb Farmers Market, I swore I was just like, I'm never leaving here. After, after discovering like black radishes, and I was just like, what is all this over here? It's purple. And they were just like, well, we know where the sovereign's going. She's over there. Let her be in her little world with those colors. And I was just
It's heaven.
enamored with how much is there that some people don't know. But if you cook with what people may not, or they may see it even in the store and not know what to do with like purple cauliflower. I've made popcorn in a dehydrator. Like I've done, what is it? I don't remember the company. I buy their stuff all the time. The kale. They do kale chips, not Brad's. I love those too, but it's another one. They've started doing cauliflower. Now they do mushrooms. I can't think of the company. It'll come to me, but yes. I just started doing that with a dehydrator, and it was just the best thing. Doing it with like black salt and just cauliflower and tossing in oil and putting it in the food processor, and it's just the prettiest, deepest, just indigo color that you can just look up. And I'm a visual person, so it was just really, really cool to find other things that you can do, and you know, sensory via any way, via smell, via taste, via eyes, explore. That's why it's here. It's
Have
just
a little
really fun.
Not so serious, right? You know.
Wait, and spices are your friend.
Yes.
Spices more than salt and pepper. You don't need.
Right.
You don't even need salt. There's a ton of spices, and one of my favorites is they're all organic. It's Pinch Spice Market out of Kentucky.
What's it called?
Pinch. What a great
Pinch,
name, right?
Like a
Yep.
pinch.
Yeah. Spice Market. All their spices are organic, and my cabinet is filled with them. They've got mixes that they have a Buffy Vampire Slayer mix, which you can guess it's a garlic mix that goes into almost everything that I cook. Janice, you're welcome.
They sell online, I presume.
Yes, they sell online.
Okay.
Absolutely love them. Small company, love supporting them too. And they're Ellen, I like blow that away spice wise.
Oh wait, that's just half of them.
There's another company, I can't think of them. They're a World Market.
What are they
That's where I got black lime. They're a World Market. I got black lime from there.
Black
Like
wine?
it's black lime.
Oh,
so
lime.
they sell it small, and I just pureed it with a coffee grinder.
Oh, that's
and,
cool.
and,
Hey,
and love it. What is happening right there? All right. Well, speaking of spice, we weren't looking at this one here.
The other thing I was going to mention is do not buy your black salt at Whole Foods. Get that stuff at an Indian market. I mean, come on.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
That's where I get mine from.
Yeah, and a lot of times you can find way more fun. Like, I mean, we didn't even really get into the whole range of legumes that you can find at like Indian markets and stuff like that. The different nuts and seeds that you can use to replace ground beef. Use that with some like steamed cauliflower and the seasonings. It's so yummy.
You got textural vegetable protein. You've got soy curls.
Oh, I love soy.
There's
barley wheat.
Barley wheat. I mean, obviously rice and
millet
or millet.
Yeah.
You can take quinoa and you can turn quinoa into a meat as well and spice it and flavor it. I mean, there's and oats. You can do that with oats too. Kathy Hester is big on taking oats and turning them into like a meat substitute you can use.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, we can go on for days.
Yeah.
But I'm just glad that we touched on what we did touch on because I am going to close this out. So really want to go downstairs. Black lentils. Thank you, Susan. That's awesome.
Oh, there's
So-
like cute little things. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, here we go. What are we doing? Save
Quinoa
cash
loaf.
quinoa loaf.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely get Ellen's book because it's still applicable today. That you can get $4 a day and eat healthy. So
And simple,
definitely
because
check that out.
expensive is complex. Simple is cheap.
Yeah.
Expensive.
Exactly. And healthier. Keeping it simple, the whole foods, plant-based, going that direction, less salt, less sugar, less oil, cutting those out is definitely the healthiest way that you can eat on this planet. And it doesn't mean that you can't cheat and have like a burger and fries. It doesn't mean you can't do that.
We're balanced. When did we forget that balance is part of being a human being? Right? That like
Right.
we don't, you know what I mean? Sorry. Anyway, that's
Yeah,
a whole
and don't tell people. We'll just close out with this. Don't tell people what they're eating is whatever fill in the blank. If you have a thought like that,
don't eat it.
Just keep scrolling, or just change the channel, or just unfriend. Whatever you have to do, you don't need to put your opinion on everything. And it's not to say that I haven't done it. I know we've all done it. However,
I'd
rather just keep scrolling. There are many thoughts I have as I see people's posts. I don't sit and type them.
Yeah. I can't eat gluten. Am I going to be like condemning people for like why is it my business?
Right. Like I hate mushrooms and I'm very tempted to be like, yeah, we don't offer mushroom haters like me. But I mean,
me and tomatoes. I hate tomatoes.
I skip it. Right. Everybody, and there's people think vegan is limiting, or when you say you don't eat like something like mushrooms, they're like, oh, how could you be vegan and not eat mushrooms? Well, do you eat every food on the planet?
Yeah, I mean, you're allowed to have preferences. What the hell?
Right.
We didn't get turned into like these like compost machines where you just like insert. Like we still have preferences.
It's like an omnivore doesn't eat every food. I know tons of them that don't eat a ton of foods.
Range than we
So
do.
if you hate Brussels sprouts, then that means you have the super taster gene. Some of it can be genetic, which really helps you to understand why people have these preferences.
Or you haven't had roasted Brussels sprouts, which are basically canned.
That's what I was about to say. You just haven't had a good serving of it. Somebody needs to show you.
Neutralize the gene with vinegars
and cilantro, right?
Poison and sauces and stuff, but that doesn't mean that you still don't have that taste bud that makes you
We've all got
prefer certain things, or even kind of revolts.
Right, like cilantro tasting like soap as opposed to tasting like cilantro.
But like to Susan's point, the 75,000 plus edible plants, we eat so much more of a range than so-called omnivores. That is almost funny. We need to get that out there, right?
Yes.
I think that's part of what Dr. Campbell is going to share in his talk on the 29th. So don't miss it.
I so appreciate everyone's feedback here. It's been such a great conversation.
Yes, and everyone who commented, we got every emoji.
I mean,
of this conversation. And we got thumbs up, a heart, a care, a laugh, and a sad face.
I think the sad was when I was talking about chickens.
Yes. All right, let me close it out. So thank you, Marla, and thank you, Sovereign, and thank you, Ellen, and thank you for joining us for another Vegan Stew. We will be back next week, and the topic, because I looked it up while we were live, is going to be finding community within the larger vegan community. I think we're going to get a little deep next week, which we like to do after a very easy show, like talking about food. Well, thank you, Dana, for joining us. We appreciate it. Once again, go to virtualvetdresslive.com, enter our contest. Follow all our social media. You see them at the bottom. Some of the Stew Crew is not here tonight, and we kind of pop in and out as our schedules permit. And hit the notification bell for YouTube and subscribe. Help us grow our channels. Help us grow everything that we're doing. And, have a good night and enjoy your dinners if you haven't eaten yet. Thank you, Bree, as well. And be kind. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.